All right, Chris, it's that time. Mandatory minicamp. Time for the alignment. The alignment. The first. All right, man. Now you're taking it too far. People in the comment section were commenting on that, man. You're taking it too far, Chris.
All I did was just bite my lip, and I'm just showing that we're aligned. That's it. I didn't do a body roll with it. I mean, I could have done a body roll, but I just showing we're aligned.
Let's get this sucker started.
The state of North Carolina covers 53,000 square miles. It is the habitat of the feared Carolina Panthers. Get dialed in, Panthers fans, for an in-depth look at your team, exclusive interviews, locker room insight. Let's huddle up for Panthers Playbook. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lea.
Welcome back to another episode of Panthers Playbook. That is Chris Lea, Dennis Cox here with you. Thank you guys so much for catching up with us and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do, because we're going to have Panthers content and conversations throughout the entire offseason, including, like we have this week, mandatory minicamp, Chris. Mandatory minicamp, which means everyone actually has to be there. If they're not there, they get fined unless it's, for some excused reason. But this is the first time we'll have Dave Canales. I know OTAs have been taking place, but actual mandatory, got to be there minicamp, guys in place. And something that Andy Dalton said last week in an interview in his press conference after OTA practice, saying, hey, you know what? There's a plan. Everything is intentional about what they're doing at OTAs and practice and install and all that. There's a plan pretty much opposite of what Frank Reich had last year. He's kind of what he said under the radar.
Yeah, it was very interesting. He made it the point to say, hey, I'm not trying to throw last year's coaching staff under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
But this year's coaching staff is doing something that last year's coaching staff didn't do. He didn't say that part, but that's what he was alluding to.
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
It's what he was kind of alluding to, and I just thought that was kind of very interesting. And here's one of the things too, and I don't want to just take a dump on all of the coaching staff from last year. Clearly, after we found out everything that was kind of going on behind the scenes, what the dynamics were with everybody and things like that, it's probably hard to have a plan when everybody in the room doesn't agree on where to go with things.
Sure.
And so if everybody has a different idea and a different offensive philosophy, because they all come from different types of systems and things like that, it's kind of hard to go in there with a clear message to the players. And I think that's ultimately why the whole change in staff needed to happen. Frank Reich getting fired is some of his fault, but it's also David Tepper not giving him what he needed as far as go get your guys that fit your system. That's going to give Bryce one message, so that even if you only win 3 or 4 games, at least it looks like we're moving towards something. They just never looked like they were moving towards anything last year. But what Andy Dalton was saying, it makes me feel better about this year.
Yeah.
There's just small things that we're finding out, small things that are being said that makes me think, okay, this roster is a little bit better than last year. There's still some holes. There's still some areas, glaring areas of need, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later. But just from the simple fact of, if the coaching staff is together, if there's a clear plan, and if Dave Canales ends up figuring out what he's doing during games, that could be the difference in winning 2 games or winning 6.
Yeah.
Right. I still don't have a high expectation. I don't think they're sneaking into the playoffs, but that's a huge improvement if you can get up to 6 or maybe even 7 games, winning for the season. And it just feels like there's a different energy. Again, there's no pads on. They're not really hitting. They're not going against real competition. They're going full speed up until the moment of impact. So you can't really grade what's going on and the things that we've seen. But just from the feeling and the things that we've heard and the things that we've just been seeing from coming from the Carolina Panthers, it just feels like this team is in a better position to take a step forward than what last year's team was.
And I think the big thing that a lot of people like to use the buzzword is culture, right? Dave Canales clearly has a plan for the culture that he wants to have for this team as a head coach. And it all seems like everything is funneling towards that in that direction. They're going to stumble on the way in terms of putting together an offense with so many different guys. Because you got to think the offense is returning Icky. It's returning Taylor Moton as the 2 starting tackles, Bryce, and then, Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders are back, but they got
Austin Corbett, but different position.
He's changing position, and Thielen. So really, there's like 6-7 new guys really on offense and a new offensive coaching staff. There's a lot of turnover on the offensive side of the ball, and even defense has got some turnover too. But everything Canales is doing right now this offseason is establishing the culture of what he wants this team to look like, how they practice, how they communicate, all those things. And it seems like he's keeping things super basic for the offense right now. But like, hey, you know what? Let's master the basic stuff of our offense as opposed to, hey, let's throw 9,000 things at you. Like, no, let's start with a couple core concepts. Yeah. Let's build off that. That seems like what he's doing right now. And to me, that excites me because there is a plan. Andy Dalton said everything's intentional about what they're doing this offseason. Didn't really have that last year. There's a plan. They're moving forward. And I love hearing that. I love seeing that coming from this team because it feels like we haven't had that 6-7 years, a plan.
Since Rivera.
Since Rivera. I mean, really, that's it. Which has been 6 years. And it's nice knowing that there is a direction that this team is headed. Again, they're going to stumble on the way. Rookie head coach, still young quarterback, a lot of new faces. But I'm liking it, Chris. I really am. I haven't drank the Kool-Aid quite yet, but I got a cup in my hand. I got a cup.
And and Canales also said himself in the past couple of weeks, even the stuff that you saw with me in Tampa, we started off with some basic stuff to make sure that that Baker Mayfield was comfortable as we got, towards the end of the year, and everybody started having more comfortability with the system as they started having more chemistry with each other. Then we got a little bit more complicated with what we did, and then we started adding more wrinkles and things like that. So I like it. He's broken it. If you've listened to what he said, he's broken down what his install plan is really going to be, and he basically used OTAs to almost introduce all of the concepts, and then from here it's just building upon that. And then the actual dress rehearsal for that will be, basically this week for minicamp. And then we're really going to do it for training camp. And then figure out where we're going from there, take the best stuff, use it for games. I love how Canales is kind of telling us what's happening without giving it away. Because at the end of the day, we don't know exactly, we know what the offense looked like in Tampa. We know what the offense looked like in Seattle, but there's always different things, right?
Sure.
It's different head coaches. Different head coaches have different philosophies on what to do and what down and distance. And
different personnel.
You have different personnel, different players and all that. So we kind of know what the offense will look like, but we kind of don't know what the offense will look like.
We have really no idea
until we really see it. And last year was a good look into that because, I went to training camp and saw, what the Panthers did against the Jets, and it looked good. Here's the thing, though. The Jets' defensive line couldn't hit Bryce.
Yeah, there's that.
So Bryce wasn't running for his life. And the defensive backs weren't covering the way that they're really going to cover in games. So that meant that wide receivers had more time to get open. So we still need to see this against real competition because we really don't know right now. But it's very encouraging the small little glimpses of things that we're seeing right now for the Carolina Panthers.
Seems like they want to run the ball. Use play action like old school. I say old school, like 2010, football out there. It seems like with the way Dave Canales has talked about how he wants to.
2022 with Steve Wilkes when he basically.
Let's be real. Let's call it what it was.
After that rule was out,
they're throwing it back to Steve Wilkes, and I love it. It was still Steve Wilkes.
But one thing I like about that too, and they brought this up during OTAs, was that this will help out Ikem Ekwonu.
Yes.
Because
yes.
Because he was put in certain situations where, like, coming out of NC State, his strength was run blocking, right? And so if you put him in situations where he's doing that, or if you have RPOs where he's run blocking, but there's the option for the pass, he might work better in those situations, right? Instead of like, okay, just hold your guy for the 7-step drop and make sure, like, if you keep having him in those situations, he may not look the best, right? But now he's like literally tailoring what they're going to do towards the personnel that they have. And so this is the guy that you're going to have for right now. And if he has a decent year this year, then he's probably going to get the 5th-year option. So you're going to have him for another 2 years. So I think it's very smart on Canales' hands. And they're stacking the running back room. I don't think that's by accident at all, because he knows they're going to run people. They're going to use the run game. And so I'm with it. I love how everything's looking. And I want to see Ikem Ekwonu take that next step. I want to see Bryce take that next step.
And Ekwonu himself even acknowledged, like, yeah, I kind of rode the coattails of my rookie season. That's what he said. Rode the coattails of his rookie year.
Man.
Like, the fact that he recognized it, that in and of itself is like 90% of the problem, is recognizing that, hey, you know what? I screwed this up. Now he's just physically got to do it.
But here's the other problem too, right? He acknowledged that, and that is on him, right? Ultimately, you
100%.
need to make sure that you are 100% locked in. But somebody on that coaching staff last year should have seen that and recognized it, pulled him to the side and said, "What's up?" And had like either weekly meetings or meetings twice a week. Like there's a time where I was kind of going through stuff in real life, and on television, I wasn't doing a bad job, but it wasn't the same job that I normally did, right? And so a boss recognized that, pulled me to the side, let's meet often, ended up being once a month. Let's talk through things. And that was very much so helpful. Somebody on that coaching staff needs to recognize that. And I really hope that this year, if there is, whether it's Ikem Ekwonu, whether it's Jonathan Taylor, whomever it could be on that particular team, somebody needs to recognize if somebody important, somebody that's going to get playing time, somebody that you are depending on is slipping. And if it's up here, you need to be able to recognize that, to pull them to the side and be able to give them some coaching. That's, to me, why you have Dom Capers and Jim Caldwell.
Yeah.
So true. I hope Dave Canales gives them that full reign to say, hey, Dave, we might need to pull Jonathan Brooks to the side, just twice a week, just to have some personal time to make sure he's coming. I don't know if he's coming off of this ACL injury the right way. Like, just somebody needs to be able to recognize that and be able to point that out, because this team has no depth. So if you start having a starter or a fringe starter dipping like that, good luck, because you're going to be without in that particular position group.
Well, I'm curious to see what things are going to look like when Jadaveon Clowney and Chaisson actually show up, because during OTAs, again, it's voluntary. Those two guys weren't there. Like, these are two of your top 3 edge rushers right now. Also, DJ Wanham still recovering from the quadricep tendon injury that he had surgery on, so he's still recovering from that. So your top 3 edge rushers during OTAs either A, aren't there, or B, unable to practice. Chaisson and Clowney not being there, I'm like, yo, Clowney, man, like, you're brought in to be like the replacement, to be like the guy as far as edge rushers goes. Like, why aren't you there, man? That to me, that's kind of like, wait a second. And especially Chaisson, a former first-round pick out of LSU 2020 by the Jacksonville Jaguars, did not pick up his 5th-year option. The guy has, 5 sacks in 4 years? Like, he's on a 1-year prove-it deal. Why aren't you at OTAs, man? That's kind of the thing. The fact that it's still 3 guys missing, those 2 guys and Eddy Pinero not at OTAs, I don't know. It did not rub me the right way that those 2 guys in particular weren't at OTAs, Chris.
I think there's a way to look at it where it's good and bad, I think, for both sides of the situation. Let's talk about the bad part of it first. For K'Lavon Chaisson, you're right. He's on a 1-year prove-it deal. You were supposed to be this, and you're not. and we're taking a flyer on you just to see. We're going to sign 2 people ahead of you, but essentially, we need you to see what you can do, or else you're probably out of the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to be at training. You need to be at everything.
Oh,
You
everything.
needed to, like, literally as soon as you signed on that dotted line, you need to live in that facility if you want to stay in the NFL. That is concerning, and there's no good side to him not being there. So I don't understand that one whatsoever, especially just for him personally. For DJ Wanham, I am a little concerned because we knew he had the quad issue, and maybe they're not giving us all the information, and maybe they're just holding him out of precaution.
Yeah, they say he's still rehabbing. They say he's still rehabbing.
I hope that's the case, but also, like, sometimes then it's like, injuries can kind of creep back up if you're just getting into the full swing of things in training camp and you haven't had March, April, May, June to really get your body going because you're rehabbing an injury. That's the part that really scares me, because behind those guys, there's not a lot of depth there. And then for Jadaveon Clowney, here's the bad part with that. You are going to be the veteran on that line. You're going to be the guy that they're probably going to lean on, and the guy who's probably going to open things up for Wanham or Chaisson or whoever on the other side. I would want you being there so that you can get that chemistry with the rest of your defensive line mates. So you can get that chemistry with the linebacker, so you understand the calls and things like that. Now, he's been in the NFL for a while. I'm sure he can pick it up, that type of thing. We will see. Here's the good part, though. There is a good part to this. There have been injuries that Clowney has had over the course of time.
That he has.
Maybe there's the discussion like, hey, it is OTAs, it's voluntary. We will send you whatever. You can jump in on Zoom meetings and stuff so you can be in the meetings with us and see it, but you don't have to be here. So you can physically keep yourself together and heal, because he's been in the NFL. This is going to be his 11th, 12th year.
Something like that, around 10, 11.
Keep yourself fresh. That could be it. We don't know. Right? I'm just throwing it out there.
We don't.
And then the other good part of it is the guy that you reached for. I mean, a huge reach last year. You didn't have to do it. You could have stayed where you were at and got somebody better, because the Steelers did with your pick.
With Nick Herbig. Yeah.
That guy that you reached for is now getting more reps. And last year, behind Brian Burns, behind Frankie Louvu, behind other folks that was on that team, Harry Anderson or whatever his name was, that was on the team last year, Eku Leota, all those guys who were there, he probably didn't get the amount of reps that he probably needed. So now the guy that we reached for, the guy that didn't play very well last year, he's been showing up. He's getting more reps. He's getting more comfortable in the second year in the NFL, in the second year in this system. Hopefully it works, but you know me, I'm an optimist.
Yeah, that you are.
Hopefully that's the case.
You're referring to DJ Johnson, by the way.
For DJ Johnson. That may not be the case.
Probably
right?
Not.
This is probably just a whole coincidence, but maybe it's the case where this coaching staff and Dan Morgan looked at it like, all right, well, Wanham is healing. We don't know about Chaisson, and Clowney is older. Maybe he can stay out. That means Johnson gets more reps. And so if we need him, if somebody goes down, hopefully he can kind of show what he can do. That's just me trying to be optimistic about everything.
Keep crossing those fingers, Chris. You keep crossing those fingers.
You basically said, sure, bud.
You
keep believing in Santa Claus. He's coming down that chimney.
Yeah, I heard the Easter Bunny's real too. But hey, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe he can contribute in some way, shape, or form in year 2. But you know what? There's a lot to be determined out there with this team. Like you said, there's a lot of questions with depth on this roster. Minicamp. My 2 things I hope for minicamp, Chris, as we close things out. 1, everyone stays healthy. Knocking on wood. And 2, people can still continue to buy in what Canales is saying. That's the thing. Canales continues to send the message that he wants to in terms of how he wants to run the franchise or how he wants to run the team and the offense of itself. and that everyone buys in. That's the only two things I'm hoping for right now. That's it. That's it.
Before we get out of here, thoughts on Eddy Pinero not showing up and the thicker kicker, the quicker, thicker picker-upper?
Give me I'm sorry. I want a kicker named Thicker. That's what I want. Like 2 C's. I want a kicker named Thicker. That's what I want, Chris. I need more thick in my life. That's it. I just need more thick. Well,
thick, the girthiness, all that. Here's what I like about this. Eddy Pinero, I know that Sheena Quick put out like the stats and all that. And like, if I guess in NFL history with accuracy, Eddy Pinero technically ranks 3rd or something all time or whatever. But we're going off of like what, 1.5 years, almost 2 years of stuff. And I'm going to a lot of those games, man. And he's good. He's accurate.
Yeah.
That leg isn't very strong though, right?
No.
The Panthers, like if I didn't feel comfortable if the Panthers needed to get a game-winning field goal if it was more than 38 yards away. You know what I'm saying? Like 40 is like, okay, I mean, he can make it. He has a leg for 40, but it's like, those things were like, he was like, it was just getting over the bar.
Yeah.
I don't know. So if you got a guy, one, he's called the thicker kicker, and I hope he spells that with 2 C's.
Oh, yeah,
and then 2, he's got such a huge, like literally thick legs. So he's got strong legs. So if he's able to, I mean, we're reading that he's bombing like, 58 yarders and he's making them and he's accurate with it as well. And if you keep that guy around and cut Pinero, you're I mean, I don't know what, the dead cap money will be, but like you're essentially going to be saving what, $1.7 million or whatever on that. You can use that for something else. I'm cool with it. I'm not married to kickers. I wanted us to keep Graham Gano because he was good.
Yeah.
But after Graham Gano, I'm not married to anybody. Maybe I'll end up liking thicker kicker. But if Pinero wants to go somewhere else and test the market and get paid somewhere else, do that. I'll take thicker kicker. As long as we don't get Harrison Bucker. There was back in the day, I was like, man, we missed out on Harrison Bucker, man. We should have had him. And then he went and opened his mouth, and I was like, ooh. Actually, I'm glad. Stay over there.
You're fine. Just keep being you. That's all good. But nonetheless, minicamp this week, and then before you know it,
hey, Harrison, what about that time in college when you, Bubba?
We're gonna leave that. We're gonna leave that right there. That's how this is gonna end. Right there.
Pause.
Make sure again you subscribe. Leave your thoughts in the comments.
He's not in alignment with himself.
Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Again, minicamp this week, and then before you know it, we'll be at training camp. We'll be there. We'll be there at training camp. But make sure you subscribe. We'll have more content for you all throughout the summer. We'll see you guys next time.